The Spotify deception. What they're really building while you stream. Right now. As you're watching this video, Spotify knows more about your emotional state than your closest friends. They know when you're sad, when you're working out, when you're trying to sleep. But here's what they're not telling you. The algorithm everyone talks about? That's just the distraction. While you were mesmerized by your Discover Weekly playlist, Spotify was pulling off one of the most ruthless corporate takeovers in entertainment history. And nobody saw it coming. What if I told you that Spotify's real power has nothing to do with predicting what song you'll like next? What if the algorithm was just bait? See, while tech journalists wrote endless articles about machine learning and AI, Spotify's executives were executing a completely different playbook. One that would make them not just a platform, but the puppet master of the entire music industry. Today we're pulling back the curtain. And I'm warning you, once you see how deep this goes, you'll never look at that green app the same way again. Section 1. The data weapon. Let's start with what everyone misses. Yes, Spotify collects data about your listening habits. But here's the twist nobody talks about. They weaponize that data against the very industry they claim to serve. Before Spotify, record labels had all the power. They decided which artists got promoted, which songs became hits. But then Spotify walked in with something revolutionary. Real-time data on exactly what people were listening to. Not what they bought, not what radio played. What they actually consumed, second by second, skip by skip. Suddenly, Spotify knew more about music trends than the labels themselves. They could see a song blowing up in Stockholm 3 weeks before it hit the charts. They had the crystal ball, and they made sure everyone knew it. But here's where it gets darker. Spotify didn't just use this data to help artists. They used it as leverage. Want to know why certain artists get playlisted and others don't? It's not always about quality. It's about power. It's about who plays ball with Spotify's terms. But the data game was just phase 1. Section 2. The playlist conspiracy. Now we get to playlists. You think your favorite playlist was curated by some cool music lover at Spotify HQ? Think again. Spotify turned playlists into the new radio, except this time, they owned all the stations. Rap Caviar, today's top hits, Hot Country, these aren't just playlists. They're gatekeepers. They're kingmakers. One placement on a major Spotify playlist can generate millions of streams overnight. And here's the sinister part. Spotify decides who gets in. They created a system where artists became dependent on playlist placement for survival. And once you're dependent, you're controllable. Record labels started making deals that gave Spotify better rates just to secure playlist spots. But wait, it gets worse. Spotify started pushing mood-based and activity-based playlists. Focus music, workout beats, sleep sounds. Except here's what they didn't advertise. These playlists are perfect for featuring cheap, no-name production music. Songs that cost Spotify almost nothing in royalties. Why pay premium rates to stream Taylor Swift when you can fill your deep focus playlist with ambient tracks from artists who barely get paid? Spotify gets to keep more money, and listeners? They don't even notice. And before you think I'm exaggerating, Spotify was literally caught creating fake artists, ghost musicians, pseudonyms for low-cost production music. When exposed, they denied everything. But the evidence? It's still there, if you know where to look. Section 3. The podcast takeover. Just when you thought you understood Spotify's game, they changed it entirely. In 2019, Spotify started buying podcast companies. And then they paid Joe Rogan over $200 million for exclusive rights to his podcast. $200 million. Why? Because Spotify realized something terrifying. They're paying too much for music. Even with all their power, they still had to pay royalties. The podcasts? Spotify could own them completely. No royalties. No labels, total control. And here's the truly sinister part. Podcasts are cheaper to stream than music. But Spotify charges the same subscription price. Every minute you spend listening to a podcast instead of music is pure profit for them. They're literally training you to consume less music on their music platform. Think about how your Spotify homepage looks now. How much of it is podcasts? It's not an accident. They're slowly morphing from a music platform into an audio empire where music is just one option, and maybe not even the most profitable one. But even that wasn't the end game. Section 4. The artist squeeze. Let's talk about what nobody wants to admit. Spotify's business model fundamentally requires artists to be paid less. The average stream pays about $0.003 to $0.005. That means an artist needs about 250 streams to earn $1, and that dollar gets split between everyone involved. But here's what makes this truly dystopian. Spotify was bleeding money for years, and their solution wasn't to charge more. It was to squeeze artists even further. They've pushed for direct deals with worse terms. They've explored ad-supported tiers that pay even less. Meanwhile, Spotify's founders and executives became billionaires. Daniel Ek's net worth? Over $4 billion? Built on fractions of pennies per stream. And when artists complain, Spotify has a perfect response. We're democratizing music. Anyone can upload, everyone gets heard. Beautiful PR spin. But the reality is that 99% of artists on Spotify make less than $1,000 per year from streaming. But Spotify knows something you don't. They know you won't leave. Because here's the final piece. Spotify has made themselves indispensable. They've trained an entire generation to expect unlimited music for $10 a month. They've created habits, routines, dependencies. Your Discover Weekly, your daily mixes, your year-end Wrapped that you share on social media like clockwork, giving Spotify billions in free advertising. You're not just a user, you're part of their marketing engine. You're their unpaid promotional army. And that's the real genius of Spotify. They didn't just build a better product. They built a system where everyone, listeners, artists, labels, has just enough stake in the game to keep playing, even when the house always wins. The algorithm everyone obsesses over, it's just the shiny object distracting you from the real story. Spotify didn't win by having better technology. They won by being more ruthless, more strategic, and more willing to burn bridges than anyone else in the room. They played a different game entirely. And by the time everyone realized it, the game was already over. So next time you open that green app, remember, they know exactly what they're doing. The question is, do you? If this video changed how you see Spotify, drop a comment below. Subscribe for more deep dives into the companies that shaped our world while nobody was watching. Because trust me, Spotify is just the beginning. Now go look at your Spotify Wrapped from last year. Really look at it and ask yourself, who's really being analyzed here? See you in the next one.